Good
We're
now,
live.
revolutionaries, and welcome to the Rise Up Morning Show. Ooh. Brought to you by the department at Rise Up Media. With talks of a government shutdown looming, this is your place for helpful crypto news, commentary, and of course, answers to the questions you just can't ask anybody else, like what happens to Bitcoin when I send it to the wrong network, or why is an NFT such a valuable thing, or Alex, how many different styles of facial hair have you had in the last 10 years? These are the questions.
At least two.
At least two, which is honestly probably more than most
three.
men can say.
Don't come.
And in the past 10 years, I have had 10 years. 3.
No, well, you've got to
Yeah.
had more than that.
No,
You seem like a man who would have a lot of different facial hair because
surprisingly, no. I mean, no, not really. I was smooth baby faced for the longest time. I stopped that at the beginning of 2015. Then it grew facial hair, and then I rock the mustache from time to time. And there's really only been one other time where I just shaved my facial hair into every possible facial hair you could possibly imagine, except for the one you might be thinking of right now that gets people canceled. And I have a picture that's still my Facebook profile picture of just like mutton chops and like a goatee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's that. But that was very short lived.
Yeah. I guess I counted that. Alex, were we right? 2? You said 3?
Yeah, nothing. Mustache only. Full thing. Full kit and caboodle.
Yeah, if you want a fun,
we're boring.
trip down memory lane, man. Alex, when he was in the military, had the most precise mustache. Like your favorite
great.
police officer would be jealous. Go scroll back through his profile and get a look at that thing.
Don't do that.
No, it's good.
Don't do that.
I'll tell you, when I shave, I like to experiment. You know, I've done the Chester Arthur. Like if I'm shaving down from a full beard to a no beard face for whatever reason, I have fun on the way down. I'll do tiger stripes. I'll do a Chester Arthur. One time I did the monkey tail that baseball player had just to say I did. Obviously I didn't keep it, but here we are. If you've got a crypto question, if you've got facial hair, if you're curious about the impact of inflation or what's going to happen tomorrow at the government shutdown and you want to talk about it or something else, then leave it below in the comments wherever you're watching. Let us know if it's your first time watching. And then if it is your first time watching and you're feeling overwhelmed, that's what I want to tell you about. I want to say, hey, listen, sometimes when you're learning about crypto, it can feel like drinking from a fire hose. But fortunately for you, my friend, we are here Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. Central Standard Time to take this stuff step by step with you. And we've got a ton of resources that you can check out at the riseupmorningshow.com, including live course recordings on Web3 101 topics like how to do technical analysis or how to earn passive income on your crypto, how to spot the most common scams and schemes. We've got past episodes of the show on YouTube, like yesterday's killer interview with Charlie Blackstock from Farcade. Chuck took us through making a video game just using a simple prompt. And of course, there's the Rise Up Discord server. It is a learning community of people at all levels of experience with lots of helpful folks. The only thing missing is you. If you want to ask us a question, like that's the place to go to make sure it lives forever, because that's where the show lives 24/7. So guys, maybe the economy is a good place to start, because Will, you were mentioning to me in the pre-chat that even though we got good inflation numbers yesterday, the economy didn't really react the way that some people would have expected. Your sentiment was like...
First of all, I want to correct your vernacular.
Thank you.
It is not the economy. It was Wall Street. These are two very different things.
Okay, distinguish them for me.
So if you want to watch this on a chart or just go through your life experiences, go back to COVID. Go back when the entire global economy shut down, right? The economy. So the economy is you have a job, you have money, you're adding to GDP for your nation and country, you're providing services and receiving money back. It's the labor market, right? It's wages. It's how you earn your money. That's the economy, right? Now, Wall Street, at that time, Wall Street fell as the economy shut down, but then it immediately rebounded. And during COVID, Wall Street and crypto we're doing great despite the global economy being shut down, which should, people are like, oh my God, this is going to be worse than the Great Depression. The reason why it wasn't is because the markets got flooded with cash to just kind of keep things alive, right? So it was the perfect example of, hey, while the economy affects Wall Street and Wall Street affects the economy, they are different things and they can act differently from one another. And just because the economy is doing well or poorly does not necessarily mean that Wall Street is doing well or poorly.
Would you say that Wall Street, therefore, is a micro economy?
I wouldn't call it micro. Micro is not the right word because it's massive, right?
Yeah, right.
It's the amount of money in it is gargantuan. So not micro. I would say that it is entirely its own thing. It is the economy of finance.
Got it. An
That is what
extra
it is.
economic factor.
Yeah,
Group.
whereas the economy, as we call it, is what normal everyday people live in. The economy of the world of finance is where money, government, and people who invest and the people who influence the economy live. It's
And if
kind of
you-
like different, or like the 99% and the 1%. I don't know if you want to put it like that. That's not necessarily perfect, but
Sure.
I mean, I feel like you could even split up, what we perceive to be the economy into probably the different rungs on the socioeconomic ladder as well. There is.
oh yeah, sure.
Because, like, for example, right out here on the island, I see a lot of people who are not in. Let's just say they're not in my tax bracket. Okay, and they're doing fine. Like they've got a gajillion different properties, like all sorts of stuff. But obviously, the economy being experienced by somebody making sub 50 a year is extremely different. And that is the overwhelming majority of people.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about, because I think that's where a lot of this gets lost, the nuance in describing like good economic numbers when the overwhelming majority of people are not experiencing what feels like a good economy. And those two things, like it doesn't really make sense. How can on paper so many classic economic indicators be so good? And then like, oh, this one little data point's like not great, but that one little data point just so happens to be the price of like everything that everyone needs to survive on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and that's my question to you, Will, is you had mentioned that your perception of people's sentiment was that folks, this is like we got good data yesterday. We're getting some more today.
Data that we
And-
expect will be good as well. Usually if CPI is good, PPI is good, they tend to come
Right.
together.
But that it hasn't had a huge effect on the market, or at least that the effect it's had on the market hasn't made people feel particularly great. And I wasn't sure if that was people in your comments. I wasn't sure if that was people who have a really informed opinion on this kind of thing. And I was just curious
Well,
if you
if-
could illuminate
if the
that and then tell
market-
us what we
Yeah.
might expect. When are we getting PPI today? Because I know
We're
we'll
getting
talk about it.
PPI in 15 minutes at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's when inflation data always comes in. And the thing is like, it's sentiment, sure, that we see in our comment section. People are down, all that kind of stuff, right? Sentiment is down. You can go and look at a fear and greed index for the stock market and for crypto. It's down. It's in fear. It's in fear or extreme fear, right? But what you can do is just go and look at how the market reacted yesterday to really good CPI inflation data. And that's really impactful because CPI inflation data was like the main thing that was moving the markets like 7 months ago, right? If it was good or bad, or 9 months ago, right? And what the market's always most fearful of always changes because markets always change. But still, we had really good inflation data come in for the month of February, and no one came in and bought. I mean, like the markets for both the stock market and Bitcoin are basically just neck and neck with where they started the day prior. If nobody is coming in and buying on good, very good even inflation data, that tells you the market is more worried about other things now. And the things that the market's worried about, expansion of trade wars. On that same day, later though, from the open of CPI inflation, was retaliatory tariffs put on the United States from Europe and Canada. We also had data come out about the jobs market, which people are getting more worried about too. So for the month of February, unemployment in the United States only went up by 0.1%. So from 4% to 4.1%. So that's actually not bad. But Underemployment is a category that is going up at an accelerated pace. And what that category is it is the they are the people who are trying to find a full-time job, but they can only get part-time jobs. And also included in that group are people who are not in the job market at all, but would like a job. Those numbers are at highs all across the board, going all the way back to 2021 levels, like May through July. And it has increased to 8%. So yes, I have 3 part-time jobs. Yes, Tori, you would be included in the underemployed area. And more people have to get multiple part-time jobs because part-time jobs tend to not pay as much as a full-time job to then support yourself
or have
in
any
an
benefits.
economy.
Your costs are way higher.
Right.
Yes. Especially in an economy where inflation has been a problem for 2.5 years. And that's part of the reason why underemployment has been going up, but it's really been going up during the month of February. So the unemployment number, which is the bumper sticker, the slogan for the US jobs market, looks solid still. But underneath that, the currents are getting a little murky. And that also came out yesterday. And then on top of that, you have fears, and the market usually always reacts negatively in the short term, of fears of a possible government shutdown, which we are also potentially walking into by the end of the day on Friday. And so you have all those things, and then, everyone's really worried about the continued impact of trade wars. That's the big thing, the continued impact of trade wars. Way more worried about that, and markets tend to be forward-looking as opposed to, hey, we got good inflation data for February, because the market makers go, cool, tariffs weren't on in February. They did get turned on March 4th in a big way. So let's look and see how that's going to impact things. Tariffs are still new. We're very worried about it's going to constrict the economy. That's our big fear. And and I think Jerome Powell has also squashed a lot of fear about inflation too, with his own statements, where he's like, we talked about this yesterday. He's like, the 2025 targets for inflation look good. It looks like the things that are really driving up inflation in a consistent way based on the market are coming down. And when we look at tariffs, tariffs can impact inflation in the short term, but then trade deals get struck and they go away. So we're just kind of taking that and kind of pushing it to the side. And what we really care about for what's driving sticky inflation, those are coming down. So I think Jerome Powell has really kind of washed away a lot of fears of inflation's impact on asset market prices. And it's really a focus on interest rates getting cut at the Fed eventually, trade wars, and expansion of them. And
I want to have a follow-up question that 2 people in the chat have asked. First of all, thank you again for making the complex clear. About M2 money supply, you had said you wanted to do some homework and make a video on M0, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, and I still got to do that. It's on my to-do list today, actually.
Then let's set that aside. If you're curious about M2 money supply, I do know that it's an indicator we've all talked about, but I knew you said you had that coming.
It's going to come today. But
you want to give the preview?
As we talked about last time, though, M2 money supply is like people moving to cash.
Yeah, money that can soon become liquid, like next to liquid money.
Yes. So the issue with M2 money supply is you'll see a lot of people make videos or tweets and be like, M2 money supply is going up. The liquidity's here, baby. Woo, bull market. Yeah. And in reality, I've
seen that exact video.
You've seen that video. I'm going to make that video. No, it's that if people are running to cash or cash equivalents, like bonds, actually, no, are bonds included to M2? Again, I got to research. Yeah. Anyway, if people are moving to cash, yes. People are moving to cash and cash equivalents. It's because it's a time of uncertainty, and people are leaving markets to go to cash because cash is king in a bear market. That's been a saying for forever, ever, and it is a policy. And it is a policy and strategy that people implement during times of uncertainty. You run to cash. Look at Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett has 40% of his company's portfolio in cash. He's doing exactly the same thing. He's probably the reason why M2 money supply is going up. He has the biggest impact. And that's it. So you see M2 money supply go up and people go, yeah, you got to go, wait a second. Why are they doing that? Oh, they're very uncertain and fearful of the time. They expect assets to continue to go down, which means that their dollar is going to be better just being a dollar as opposed to being invested in markets, which is why the M2 money supply is going up. Oh, Yikes.
Yeah,
Okay.
and people might be asking that right now because I'm looking at this chart right here. I'll show this on the screen share. This is what the chart of M2 money supply looks like right now for people who don't know. Can you give me a quick assist on the screen share? It'll just be a brief one, and then we can go right back.
Gotcha.
Thank you very much. And again,
Can
M2.
can you
Yes.
zoom in the time frame? Because this is 1960 to 2025.
Oh yeah. I guess that would probably help. So according to this, let's go. How about 2020? You want to do the last year, 2024?
Yeah, let's do that.
Look at that. Whoop, up and to the right. And just as a definition for people, I'll give it to you because people might be curious. M1 is currency in circulation, checking accounts, people's, actual checks that they might write, stuff you can just whip right over into cash. And then M2 is all of that plus savings deposits less than $100,000, small denomination time deposits, bonds, CDs under $100,000, and then retail money market mutual funds, other kinds of funds, institutional funds, other instruments, assets that are one step removed. That's when you get into M3. So this is interesting to me. I honestly have to tell you, I've never looked at this chart. I have never looked at this chart. Not in my life.
I'm not shocked, but also I don't really look at the M supplies.
I'm not shocked either because, like, in a world where we print more money all the time, it would make sense to me that literally all the time people that M2 money supply would increase because most people are not converting the money they get into assets, and the government just continues to print more.
Yeah.
So like that seems like kind of an obvious chart.
And the government will print even more as soon as bond rates come down, and then the Fed cuts interest rates, and then we'll just have more money printing. And it'll be happening forever.
I don't know if that's a good answer to this question here from the Rocketeer. Why is it that M2 rises with BTC price? But that would be my answer, is that in a world of inflationary fiat currency where whether you're a Democrat or Republican, gay or straight, if you have power and you run a government, your incentive is to print more fiat money to spend on things you want to do, then Bitcoin's price will go up and M2 is going to go up too. Sound fair?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the thought. We will have PPI numbers when they come out. I know Will, you'll make sense of them for us. What do you guys think about the impending government shutdown?
I wasn't paying attention to it at all until I saw this morning, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that'll affect markets." I didn't have that in my calculation.
No, I didn't see it at all. Go ahead.
We have to remember that right now it's people feel weird. The feeling around the sentiment around a potential government shutdown is different than it's been the last couple times, because we've just been, what's tradition? Vote for the continuing resolution, kick the can down the road. Been doing it for
all the time,
last few years. We oversaw, or the Trump administration oversaw the first go around, 3 shutdowns, including the longest one either ever or in a very long time.
I thought there was only one shutdown. That's just the one I remember. I just remember the big one.
I also remember the big one because I stopped getting paid the entire time, and quite a non-insignificant number of military families who are paycheck to paycheck, which is insane, by the way. Just throwing that out there again. Were like in line for food support. I vividly remember. I also vividly remember my congressperson coming and telling us that we were all in this together at base while we were, getting deployed actively with no paychecks, and like you're going into debt to put gas in the planes because you have to keep flying. People are still drowning. That shit's insane. So the motivation to keep it open right now is different than it has been before. Like, okay, you got to keep it open. Just vote for fucking anything and ram that shit through and keep it open. And now you have this like head-to-head, burn it to the ground and also kick the can mentality, fighting each other. And right now, like, it's hard to say whether or not burn it to the ground has the majority. So we'll see. But I'm just saying, an administration run by these people is not a stranger to shutting it down, either to make a point or to further something that they believe.
But the thing is like, ooh, that's actually interesting. Also, the longest government shutdown was a 35-day shutdown, surpassing the 21-day shutdown that happened in 95 to 96. So it was a 35-day shutdown.
Yeah.
Basically, whole month. Wow, great noise. But here's an interesting strategy, and I don't know if this is actually the case, but it would work for what I made videos yesterday that the title of which were clickbaity triggery. So I kind of felt bad about that one, but it was tariffs will not do what Trump wants them to. And then the immediate next video was tariffs will let Trump do exactly what he wants them to do. And so the first video was talking about how tariffs just aren't really a great tool for balancing trade deficit. I went into that. The next video was tariffs are really great at doing what Trump has said he also wants to do, and is his main goal, which is to drive the rates of bonds down and to apply pressure on Jerome Powell and the Fed to start cutting rates also. That's important because Trump has policies that involve spending money. And if the rates on bonds are lower, that means the government can borrow money from the people at cheaper rates that they have to pay back. And if rates on the Fed go down, it's cheaper to borrow money also, all across the board, right? Mm-hmm. So tariffs create a trade war. Trade wars create uncertainty. They typically result in more unemployment, a few other things that result in markets going down. If markets go down, people dive into bonds. If people dive into bonds, rates go down. Cool, check mark for objective of Trump. The other thing too is if the market goes down and the core things that the Fed are looking at for inflation are also going down, the Fed will step in sooner to cut rates, to apply relief and money to the system to heal it again. And then unemployment will sink. People have jobs, and it's good times. Good times again for most people. And so tariffs are really good at that. Now, government shutdowns. Government shutdowns are bad because it jacks up unemployment like crazy. People stop getting paid. As Alex, you just mentioned, your experience with not getting paid for 35 days and military families going and getting food relief, right? Because everyone in the government, I mean, it's a government shutdown. No one's getting paid, right? So unemployment jacks up. Markets really don't like that. It's going to hurt businesses and stuff. And you also send the stock market down. So is this, I don't know if this necessarily is, because if the government shut down, Trump can't do other things also that he probably wants to do. But tinfoil hat, is this all a part of the strategy to apply pressure to lower rates on bonds faster and to apply even more pressure onto the Fed to cut rates?
It's a trap.
It's a
could be.
Yeah, maybe. See, I don't know, but
this is part of the uncertainty, though, is that motive is unknown.
That's right.
This is a weird thing to experience, and it's very hard to try and pinpoint any motive behind any of this stuff. Because, like, to counter the idea about forcing an interest rate cuts, specifically to refinance something, I don't know if you've ever run the math, but the amount of money that would be saved in a reasonable to expect interest rate cut on the amount of debt that would be able to be refinanced to come down to that number is pretty minuscule. It's relatively insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And so it's very hard to imagine that, like, all of this would be worth it at a time when you're also attempting to mass force a gigantic number of federal employees to retire early while nuking their 401k with a trade war that nobody asked for. Like, all of these things put together, it's incredibly hard to suss out any kind of motive. And the motive that I keep coming back to is, like, who's happy? There's one number that's interestingly high, and that's corporate CEO sentiment. Potentially because they're staring down the barrel of stock buybacks at a discount.
That's the thing.
Looking at potential to recover the economy, resume market confidence, and then sell those shares back.
And then you made so much money
that you just bought them back from. So if the only people in the country right now that are super jacked are CEOs and the stock prices are falling, you gotta question what that is. Is it too many shares in the hands of shareholders and they would like to recycle that and create some more money off the top of the nuke confidence, restore confidence? Because that's kind of my vote.
Also, who affects M2 money supply the most? The 1%. Who are the 1%? your CEOs and your Warren Buffetts, right? If they're moving to cash, M2 money supply goes up faster than the rest. It's going up pretty high over the past year. Then they're in cash, so that when things fall, they buy back in low, personally themselves and with their businesses, to then make oodles and oodles of cash, because no one is more educated or in the know about how markets are going to work than your favorite 0.1 of the 1%. And then they're here to play a game where they know more of the rules and what's going to happen than you do. So you can copy them. That's the best you can do.
But it's all reactive, and being reactionary is not necessarily the strongest position to be in, but it's kind of the one we're forced to be in.
You've got people like Jeff Bezos who are jacked. And then, like you said, Will.
Also, I would like to say I love Jeff Bezos' transformation to just like a crazy jacked like Bond villain like guy, and he has like his super hot wife now. And then
Bond villain is a great descriptor.
And then he's just and then I will say that if I was a billionaire like Jeff Bezos, I would be no different in any way, shape, or form. I'd be wearing a cowboy hat in a spaceship going to space. Also, I'd be doing all that weird shit.
We have a really good comment here. This is so I'm not getting what you guys are.
Just the weird shit and not all the other shit.
And not the
hyper predatory practices of Amazon as a company.
Yes, but hey, you know what? I get packages in 2 days now, and that's great.
Let me highlight a couple comments
here. If you knew
here.
why, you'd probably be willing to take an extra day or two on shipping.
There are some really good comments here. The first good comment I need to highlight is Latina wife would do that to a man. So
Latina wife would do that to a man.
I just thought that was a good joke.
And now he lives in Miami too. So he's just
listen. We have known some powerful Latina wives in our lives. Shout out Amber Lorden. I'm not getting what you guys are saying you're doing. You're doing the same thing with crypto by buying low and selling high. I want to zoom in on this and also contrast it with a comment your mom left that doesn't Congress pay itself during the shutdown? Here's the thing. We are buying low and selling high. Congress does pay itself during the shutdown. And if they chose not to, if we chose not to buy low, sell high, then the poorest members of Congress who are new, who are just working a job, who don't have any wealth yet, are going to suffer compared to the members of Congress that have more money than God and could let the government be shut down for as long as you wanted. I'm not saying that to advocate that we should pay Congress and not everyone else. I'm saying a shutdown hurts most the people at the bottom. When I buy low and sell high, brother, I am causing Luke Skywalker at the beginning of his training-sized ripples in the Force that a master like Yoda could
speed up by that robot that shoots the little stingrays.
Yeah. The Jeff Bezoses and Nancy Pelosi's of the world are like Yoda, lifting a finger and going like that and just bursting the galaxy with energy, compared to what even the most effective strategic retail trader like you and I are able to do. So it's an outsized impact. And it's not a fair mechanism. And it is a product of a system where, the incentive of people in power is to print more money, preserve their power, preserve the hegemony of their particular part of the economy, and so on and so forth. It's a problem, and it's complex. I also wanted to highlight one more comment, and then I want your response, which is our portfolios are already shut down. So what's the problem?
Oh, actually, I put out a tweet today, because I've been seeing in the live last night and other lives and stuff. And I was just like, man, I remember being that person where someone was like, oh yeah, I'm going to sell into the next relief rally. And then someone came and commented next to it. It's like, dude, we're already down like 60%. Like, why would you sell? Next comment back was, well, if we go down another 60%, that's what I want to avoid. And the person goes, down another 60%. We're already like, what do you mean? This is the bottom. And I remember being like, I remember Will in the 2018 bear market listening to comments like that and then writing several down further 60% waves. So I was just like, I remember round tripping that bag. That's exactly how that went. Again, I'm not a sage. Maybe the market recovers, right? But what I'm seeing is scary. So, I have PTSD from riding a bag up and all the way back down again. And it feels a lot like the market feels right now.
I see you thinking, Alex. Go ahead.
I had an interesting conversation with somebody in the comment section the other day who was extremely angry because I made the point that we don't know where the markets are going in the short term. Nobody does. And I think you know, I think that this particular individual was really just angry that somebody was not holding his hand and telling him what to do, because he was clueless and probably heavily underwater, and decided that the best way to do it was to lash out at me for saying that I don't know where things are going.
Is that the tweet? Oh,
Is that it?
I was like, come on, man. I was like,
pause
don't
for
chase
come
me.
on, Evan, you're the actor. Pause for effect. No,
Ideal.
I'm just, thinking about phrasing here, because
Yeah.
I've seen a couple other comments that are just about, like, well, I wish someone would have just told me to get out of the market 3 months ago. It's like, yeah, bro, me too, man.
Right.
To be fair, like my big difference between this bull run and the last one and the one before that was I found myself in the middle of the previous two thinking to myself, like, this is a bull run. Like, we are moving and pushing and moving. And this time I've been sussed out the entire time, which is essentially all I've ever communicated, that like I feel clueless right now, coupled with the fact that I've done better than all other times, because every time something moves up 30%, I'm like, better trim. And then it, dumps a bit and I'm like, okay, well, discount. And then it 30% again. And I'm like trimming every single time. And keeping that going, you can apply that same methodology throughout any phase of the market, because with something like crypto, you're going to have days where the news is good enough to give you 10% in an hour. 10% profit on an investment in an hour is ludicrous.
It's
Okay,
impossible
so
anywhere else.
give yourself the reward of profit in that time. And I'm, I refuse to be the person who's like, if you were paying attention, you would have known to take profit. But that's the only like constantly spread message that matters, is like when you are in something that's this volatile, even if confidence was high, you're still looking at a market that's predominantly full of heavily diluted niches with a gajillion projects that are basically all doing the exact same thing with a slight deviation. You should be taking profits the entire time, especially when people are generally sketched out. Like we were going into an administration shift, stocks were just all-time high, like at some point, right? So I don't know. I certainly would never say call the top. Have no clue where the bottom is. We're breaking historical data on a regular basis. This cycle has been very different than previous cycles. Last time you had 15,000 cryptos, now you have 25 million. It's not the only thing I know for sure is that the game has changed, and the other thing that I'm confident in is that I don't know where things are going. So I just play with the hand that I know I have, which is like I have some volatile assets, and if they give me 10% in a day, I'm gonna pay myself. That's all I can do.
Yep. And I'll say, like, for my own skill set, also, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I would say I have become good, and I'm trying to refine it even more. I have become good, not at calling tops and bottoms, but calling at near tops and near bottoms. And I think that's a pretty damn good skill set with technical analysis and economic analysis. And I'm trying to refine that more and more to try to get closer to tops and try to get closer to bottoms, because I wait to see confirmations of things from a TA standpoint and an economic standpoint. It's just that markets are forward looking and a little bit more ahead. So I'm trying to cut that time down. But that's where I would say my skill set is at right now. But again, I've been wrong. I'm not perfect in any way, shape, or form, and I make mistakes and all that kind of stuff.
So the other point that this person made at me very angrily, which I kind of understand, I guess one angle, if I'm being like very gracious in cutting through being called stupid and hurtful, true, is like, okay, but what are you confident in? Because we wouldn't be here if we didn't have some sort of confidence, right? And so the point that I keep making is if you arrived at something like Bitcoin for any myriad of reasons, all of the things that we've discussed, right? Here's a comment that just came in that's so true. War in Ukraine ends, tariffs work themselves out or don't, whatever. Nothing has changed fundamentally about Bitcoin. So basically to say like all this kind of stuff can go on in the world, all these different, events, news related, conflict related, economy related, whatever, fundamentally Bitcoin remains unchanged. People's attitudes and confidence levels in market shifts and all this sort of stuff, short term, absolutely fluid. But overall, Bitcoin doesn't change. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
My confidence in Bitcoin fundamentally has not shaken. And the point that I keep trying to make to people is if you showed up to this and you're having a multi-year mindset where you're like, well, this is an asset that I believe in long term. I've seen it perform. I would like to, take the risk and get exposure to this thing. I want to hold this asset. Boom, done. I'm thinking years in the future. Why are we looking at the 1-day chart? Why are you ever looking at a 1-hour chart? Unless you're trying to day trade, totally separate conversation. I'm not your teacher for that.
Yeah,
but
most of us here are not really day trading. I would say most crypto investors I know, especially the successful ones, are not day trading. They're longer.
I would say almost everybody though starts off trying to you fantasize about the idea of like day trading and looking at the 1-hour time frame. At least that's what I found in like coaching sessions with people.
Yep.
They'll send me screenshots of their charts and stuff, and I'm like, what am I looking at here? And they're on like the 5-minute chart. They're like, well, like these guys I listen to look at the 5-minute chart. I'm like, well, they're day traders. They've been doing this for 15, 20 years.
Yeah. And the other thing about good day traders is they're not taking a ton of trades all the time. Most of them that I know, I'm sure there are people trading the 1-second chart and smoking,
and the thing is they take like a 1%, 2% trade and they cut it off.
Yep.
And maybe they used some leverage and they got a 4% or a 10% trade out of that. And they have a big position and it ends up being $9,000 for the day. Like, cool, I made $9,000 today, and they walk away. Whereas, for a normal person getting in and they say, oh, they see that and go, I want that. I'll day trade. I'll do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes that's also paired with seeing tweets and videos of like, don't sell unless it 50x's. And they're like, oh, okay, well, I just want, and then it's not a good combination.
Well, it's a barrage of anecdotes from a wide array of different strategies for completely
1000%.
Different people.
And it's so confusing to new people in the space. You hear all these different mixed messages and you don't necessarily understand that they're different strategies.
Well, and plus you often get people holding up examples of luck and touting it as wisdom paying off.
Or skill. I called it last year. I told you I was right.
So this,
man, I should make more videos about my engine coin investment. I 100x this, but
I should make more videos of the 8-ball.
I bought it and then it went up about 30x, and then it crashed all the way down to minus 80% because I didn't sell it in the 2018 bear market. And then I just left it in that wallet along with all the other altcoins that went to zero. And then it just happened that I held on to it. And in the next bull cycle, gaming got hot and it 100x. And I was like, okay, now I'll sell. I got lucky. That was just fucking luck. Straight luck.
Been there.
Which exactly. And so when that gets held up as, as an example of someone's skill and prowess in the market, then it gets interpreted as gospel by people who are in a bad position and would really like to believe that that could be the case for them too. And theoretically, it's possible for anyone to get lucky, but not likely. That's not a strategy that you'd want to rely on. So, what do you do instead? And I firmly believe that you accept what you know and don't know. And, what I know or what I believe is that long-term, my investing into Bitcoin is going to pay off for me. And I'm willing to weather a storm in the short term because I'm not interested in the short term, because I know that I am not a day trader. I know I don't do chart stuff. I know that if I make predictions and take, hefty gambles in one way or the other, I'm likely to be wrong. And I'm not a big fan of just like swinging money away.
And frankly, that just simplifies everything. If you're taking that perspective, there's a much smaller menu of options to choose from. Will, what's so funny?
I'm just laughing at this comment that we have from YouTube, which is Dash is coming back. And I just tickles me so much because whenever I think of a coin that was so hot and goes away, my mind immediately goes to Dash. It was a payment coin. It was a payment coin back in like 2017.
And it was flashy.
It was in the top 10. It was in the top 10. Maybe it was in the top 5 too. And now it's in the total trash can dumpster.
Dash in the trash. We've had 3 or 4 comments about this. I didn't want to derail the conversation because that was so helpful, I think, for a lot of people about PPI. When's it coming out? The news is,
yes, that's right. It's out.
It's been out. I know you've looked it up, Will, and you'll make sense of it for us. After that, oh my God, I'm dying. I would love to address a comment we got way back at the start. I thought it might be helpful to do it here, which is, what do you think about Movement Labs? I know after we partnered with Move, we Movement Labs, golly, we all got good comments and feedback. I haven't had time to make a video yet, and so I thought it might be good to do a round robin and address our, what do we like, what don't we like, what are our next questions, and where would we go from here on it. And if you have a crypto question, don't hesitate to leave it in the comments or in the Rise Up Discord server. Really quick commercial for the Discord to say, if you've got a question, like my friend down there who asked, help, I can't send XRP from Coinbase to my Arculus wallet. I have to say that the comments are a super helpful place to connect with people, but they're probably the hardest place to get that question answered. We may not see it. Our show lives 24/7 and your questions live forever on our Discord server. It's totally free to join, and you can get help with questions like that. That is absolutely the best place to share a screenshot of what you're seeing or connect with somebody who has experienced that very same problem, almost certainly, and can walk you through it step by step, maybe even faster than us. We have an awesome community of friends there, and we even have a premium membership. If you're like, this whole free thing, it's not working out for me, I want your attention now, I want your feedback, whatever, check it out. It's all at theriseuppmorningshow.com. You can find the links to the Discord there, or just remember discord.gg/riseup. Will, what are we looking at, man?
Yes. So, PPI inflation. Yes. PPI inflation, for those of you who are unaware about what PPI inflation is, it is the measurement of the cost of goods experienced in business-to-business transactions. So, a retailer buying goods from a manufacturer, or a manufacturer buying raw materials from a raw materials provider. Right? So it's business to business. Now, we have year-over-year figures, and we have month-over-month figures. And these are figures for the month of February. So PPI inflation was expected to be at year-over-year at 3.3%. It has fallen to 3.2%. That's good. Still high, but it's good it fell. PPI month-over-month, so February as compared to January, was expected to increase by 0.3%. And it didn't increase at all whatsoever, 0%. That's phenomenal. Now, there's also the PPI core. This is inflation, but stripping some of the more volatile portions of it. This is the figure that the Fed, the U.S. Central Bank, looks at the most closely. It was estimated year over year for core PPI inflation to be at 3.5%. It came in at 3.4%. Hey, a reduction. And now PPI core month over month, and this is the final bit of data, was expected to come in at 0.3%, and it reduced by negative 0.1%.
So it actually reduced by negative, it went up?
No, it went down. Like inflation went down. Sorry, it reduced by negative. No, sorry, double negative. But it was negative 0.1%.
Got it.
Yeah, which means that the core inflation points that the Fed really likes to look at, really good for inflation. So again, what the Fed said in their report that I reported on back in January for the year of 2025 was that they are seeing the things that they care about most that impact inflation going down.
Woohoo!
Which is wonderful.
So we got good yesterday, good today, data, but things are still in the crapper.
Yeah, and I bet the markets don't move up a ton. In my update today, I said, hey, the window is still totally open for markets to have a little bit of a short-term rally just based on TA. Okay, cool. And so, sorry, I keep getting dinged with Discord noises.
Yeah, but, sorry, it's me.
I know.
Take a look.
Yeah. That's cool. But what was I saying? Yeah. So, I mean, I don't expect the markets to like immediately turn around at this news because, again, the markets are forward looking to the ever expanding trade war. And if the trade war even doesn't expand here, although it will expand in April, because the extra half of the tariffs against Canada and Mexico but go back into effect April 4th, FYI, unless, of course, that date gets changed. So the trade war is expected to expand. The impact of the trade war on the economy hasn't necessarily been felt yet. So that's the thing that markets are really looking at. So while inflation here is good, that does make us feel good about having rate cuts at some point in 2025. But the immediate problem on the economy and Wall Street and Bitcoin is the trade war. So that's not been solved yet.
And if we're talking about, like why wouldn't what would have been bullish news in the case of data like this 6 months ago, why isn't that the case now? Like
well,
you just
6
mentioned.
months ago, we didn't have the trade war.
Exactly. Yeah. So obviously the big picture has changed outside of what is generating the data. 2, we've known that rate cuts in this year were coming. It's not out of the question to say that a lot of that could be priced in. All of it, who knows? Walking it back to say not as many has not changed. That ended up pushing things back. And then, of course, in general, like if people are already expecting that March's data is going to be bad, it's very hard to get excited over what they expect already to be the last month of good data with this stuff that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, exactly. Markets are forward-looking.
So
markets are forward-looking. Data is backwards. Past-looking, not backwards. Unless Will is saying it's negative.
It depends on the data.
Production.
There's some data that's forward-looking, but
yeah. I mean these particular data points.
Correct.
Yeah.
They're backwards looking.
Okay.
I think
really quickly, I want to do a round robin on what
No. Let's keep talking about this. What's the right term?
I want to do a round robin on movement. And then I want to bring up our good friend, Mike. He's got an update for us about something cool he's built that I think our audience is going to enjoy hearing about if they're into March Madness and into crypto. So put a pin in that. I want to let everyone know this is not a sponsored segment, though the show was recently sponsored and scripted to do a little research, dig into the Movement Labs ecosystem. Which uses Move as its programming language. It's a layer 2 on Ethereum. They reached out to us and said, hey, we'd love to have your perspective on what we're doing. Do you think it's fact? Do you think it's crap? Where could we improve? We want you to give us your takes, and we like that perspective. We like working with people who really want our honest opinions and don't just want us to read a commercial. So we looked into it, and you made a lot of good comments on our videos. Some of the comments on my video asked about how does this compare to other blockchain solutions that also use the Move programming language. I would defer to you guys though, and be glad to hear. Let's just do a quick 5-minute segment on what were the questions you got and what further feedback did you get? We don't do a lot of like specific token talk, but I think it can be really helpful for people to see how we think about these kind of things before we might choose to pay more attention or money to a thing.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly all the comments, but there was a lot of people that are like, hey, this was on my radar screen because a lot of people, because it uses the same programming language, Move, as Sui and Aptos. And obviously those have a pretty high, mind share in the social space. So I had a lot of people be like,
would it help
this
you
was
if
on
I
my
went
radar
first?
screen.
Because I prepped a little bit for this while you were talking.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
I didn't mean to put you guys on the spot. I know sometimes that's, this is, so to give context to that, Will's point is that this is not novel. For context, Sui and Aptos have more established, substantial ecosystems. They all kind of spun up out of the Libra project at Facebook, this task to build a global currency on crypto rails. That's where Move, the programming language, was built. Sui is big. We're talking a fully diluted value of like 34 billion. Aptos, also big, pushing close to 15 billion at that end. And they both have pretty developed, established ecosystems. Sui has a capped supply. Aptos has an uncapped supply. So like different kind of tokenomics going on, different kind of applications going on. And now Move is like, keep your L1 thing. Movement, is keep your L1 thing. We're going to go build on Ethereum and bring this programming language to an EVM compatible ecosystem. So you've got this newcomer. In my mind, I think it's really interesting to add a programming language like that to a stack that's so built out instead of trying to build your own ecosystem. But there's not a lot of proof in the pudding yet in terms of adoption, in terms of apps. They've got some great incentives that all of us talked about in our video to attract liquidity, to attract developers. But that's my TLDR. The number one comment I got was, how does Movement compare to something else, that already uses the Move language? And my comparison is, I think Sui and Aptos, because they're more established, have a little more proof in the pudding. But
they have way more proof in the pudding.
Well,
that's the kind of thing I
doesn't
would
have
be
their
looking
mainnet
at.
launch.
Right. That's the kind of thing I would be looking at is when that launches, who's there?
Yeah,
How long
exactly.
do they stay there? What kind of TVL do they attract? And what kind of things are being built there? And how do they perform compared to similar apps, similar features in Sui, in Aptos? That would be the first layer of comparison. You're going to say something, Alex? I'm sorry.
Just that there are like some technical key differences between all these things too. So
I like this.
Like you said, Move as a language came out of DM from Facebook. And then it was basically the only thing that survived. Aptos took it and did one method of using that language to work with blockchain. Sui took it because this is an open source piece of technology. They both took the same thing and did their own thing with it. So Aptos built the Aptos core, which is what they use, and then Sui did Sui Move, which is like their version of it. It's meant to run a little bit differently. They use a different consensus mechanism than Aptos does. What Movement Labs did was basically just take what Aptos did and put it into an Ethereum L2 instead of making their own L1. Movement Labs code is Aptos code. If you go to Movement Labs GitHub, it's all right there, including all the brand assets.
Yeah, that was something I didn't know.
They are just straight up using all of what Aptos did. Basically, I don't have an exact percentage for you, but it's a very high percentage of what they have. Like, in order to download the environment or the playground to do stuff with movement, you need to download the Aptos core to write or build or do anything. So they are completely different in my head because you have two independent layer one ecosystems that took a language that was more optimized for blockchain and started doing their own thing with it. Movement Labs is an iteration on top of what those two have already built. So Movement Labs did not really build a code base or anything like that. They took an existing one and put it into an L2 to work on the Ethereum ecosystem instead of their own ecosystem.
Yep. And there are pros and cons to that.
Definitely. Yeah. But it's important to think about them differently. They're not necessarily competing. Like, on the surface level, it kind of seems like it because, like, from a user perspective, we would be looking to use an app in one or two different places, and you might look at these as just three independent ecosystems. But just know that under the surface, they are different.
I would say that they are competing. Actually.
I think they are from a consumer perspective, but just to
from a developer standpoint is actually what I was thinking. Because that's the most important thing they're going for right now. If we're in a bear market, no one's going to be buying, no one's going to be using. So you have build. In the beginning, you need to bring in the developers to build the dApps, and they're just fighting for developers who want to use Move. See, and
I'm actually very curious to get Mike's opinion on this because he specifically works in this arena.
Called him out.
I am going to call him out. No, because I genuinely don't know. I have a hunch, but I don't know for sure. So can we
Yes, absolutely. He is probably on the spot to talk about this. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome our friend Mike ETH to the show.
Mike, just mute on your phone.
What up, dude?
Oh yeah, I got you on the phone. Don't fret. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. Do you have a take on Move? And then let's unpack what you came here to say.
Cool.
Love the hat, by the way.
Are you able to hear me? Am I echoing?
You might just turn us down a little bit because you don't have a good headphone.
How about this? Bad? I can figure it out.
No, you're beautiful.
Yeah, it's good now.
Yeah.
Tatooine.
Perfect. Can you hear us?
Let me throw headphones in and I'll be right back.
Okay. And while Mike is coming back, let me just give him a quick plug and tell you that you can check Mike out. He's a great friend of the show at Mike MYK Crypto Dev over on X. And you can check him out over on Warpcast just as at Mike MYK. Or maybe it's Mike ETH. I need to check on Warpcast. He's a longtime friend of the show. He is the builder of Logadog, my favorite tool.
Favorite tool in general.
Just in general. It's just my favorite thing.
Honestly, truly, it's probably one of my favorite things. And has actually built some really useful, fun crypto apps. And now he's here to talk to us about something else he's built related to March Madness.
How are we doing here? Is this better?
Oh yeah, we got you good now.
Yeah, brother. And you're beautiful.
Okay, great.
Your sound.
So-
is beautiful. You could do it.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for having me on. Appreciate it. So while I was getting my headphones, I thought you guys were talking about Move, and you wanted my opinion on Move before we talked about what I came to talk about.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
we didn't pay Mike for this, but we'd love your professional, qualified opinion on this language if you have one.
Sure. I don't necessarily have a opinion strictly about Move. I haven't used it yet. I heard
Okay.
about it first when Sui was coming out, but I haven't had a chance to really dive in on it. But what I will say is, like, just historically speaking, the best languages don't tend to win out. Typically, it's the network effects. I think if you talk to any developer, they'll tell you that JavaScript is kind of like not a great language, and there's a lot of weird quirks about JavaScript. But almost everybody who programs knows how to write some JavaScript or has written some JavaScript to make something on the internet work. So the network effects are huge, and I think that's what matters. So when you talk about on-chain languages, the Solidity language, the Ethereum virtual machine, that's the one with the network effects right now. So if you're thinking about building something, you probably want to learn Solidity first. That would be my suggestion.
So it was interesting because my dad said a lot of similar things, that obviously, a language like Move might be better, at a strictly surface level for doing XYZ. It does something more efficiently. You can do it with less code. All these different things can be true. But if it's not like the comfort language, if it's not the one that you're confident in, then it's harder to incentivize somebody to make the switch. And so, Mike, something I was curious about, just because you do have, I think, very hands-on experience with this kind of thing, right? Is this, look at a new ecosystem, and obviously you're familiar with Base when it was a new ecosystem kind of from the beginning. And there's always this push, and we heard this from Aptos, we heard it from basically every network I've ever spoken to, that the goal is to pull in developers with some sort of incentive. And so, of course, Movement Labs, just like Aptos, just like so many others, have a grants program. You can apply for a grant as a developer to come in and build something. And the thinking is always and consistently that if we incentivize developers to come in and make cool stuff, users will then follow. And I personally have a lot of problems with this methodology because I've seen it not work a lot. And I believe that you need to establish culture, which crypto has proven will bring in users more aggressively than good tech. And then you can give them things to do when they're there, but they have to have some other reason to be there. If it's just testing an app, great, cool. But I don't see enough ecosystems focusing on culture building. And I think the exceptions to that are Solana, who focuses on it very heavily. And then the reason that Base is growing in terms of on-chain app revenue on a daily basis, they're in third place, and it's not even close. Fourth place is not even close. Is because, whether you like it or not, Jesse's at least out there trying to do some culture building. Like, people do more stuff on social media. There is culture building. It might not be the culture for you. That's not what I'm arguing here. My argument is that they are establishing some kind of culture.
Sorry, Jesse.
That's not, I'm just saying,
I'm just kidding.
for people who don't like, man on the street content or whatever the methodology is, he's on
Whether it's
social
Base
media
or Solo,
talking,
whatever.
he's on social media talking like a human being, and people can resonate with that, and they can find like some sense of belonging, and that's what you need. Do you see, like, from your perspective, I mean, first of all, I guess, what do you think about that idea, Mike, that like just having a grants program for devs and no attempt to do anything else for people is probably just kind of throwing money away, honestly, just trying to bribe devs with money, but no effort to bring them a customer base as well to build the product for. To me, that seems to put like a lot of pressure on a developer to then also be a marketing firm on top of building something in a place where they might have to learn a new language to build something. They might have to do a ton of, debugging and a ton of testing and go through multiple iterations and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I don't think I have any spicy takes on what you just said. I think that the culture is important. the Ethereum culture early on was like, this is a decentralized supercomputer ran
Right.
by the entire world and not one person. And the whole decentralized narrative, I think, took over, and like programmable money. So I think there's probably something to say about having a good narrative, more than just like a few grants to get people building stuff just for the grant money. I wish I had something interesting to say about that, but I think you kind of you said that pretty eloquently. I would just muddy it up.
I mean, I think, but you've also proven, you've demonstrated, because you've started to do some of your own content, and I've seen you do some man on the street type stuff and ask people questions, which, for the record, I thought was the right amount. I thought it was the right way to do that kind of content. It's like not so aggressive and
great.
asking questions, prompting conversation instead of trying to like grab somebody really quick and be like, "Hey, what do you know about this?" It was a lot more conversational, and I enjoyed it, and I hope that you continue. But in my point there, you're building really cool shit, and you are also kind of having to go out there and be your own marketing agency, because it's tough. And I would say that you're doing that in an ecosystem that is actively trying, at least.
Yes, I would agree with that. I'm a little bit biased these days, but even before I was, directly on base team, I would build things on base because I was gravitating towards the culture and the EVM and open standards.
That's a
open
good point.
protocols.
Yeah, it's not like you picked a name out of a hat and applied there. You were actively building things over there, and long before you ever worked there.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
obviously there was something that drew you in to start that in the first place.
Exactly. And it might be a good moment for me to say, like, I'm here just because, like, I love to build stuff. This has nothing to do with my relationship with my employment. Anything I say here is really my own opinion.
Coinbase wrote us a $50 million check to have Mike on the show.
No, and for the record, I've known Mike for a minute, long before any of this kind of stuff happened. We met when he was working with a project called Pawtherium, and he was actually the first cryptocurrency donation to our animal rescue. He did a partnership with Pawtherium and Radio Shack, and donated a significant piece of money to the dog rescue, which was awesome. It was the first crypto donation. I got it set up just for Mike, and then here we are years later. That was like 3.5 years ago. I don't know. It was a while ago.
Long time.
So Mike, now you're working officially at Coinbase on base stuff, and you came here not to talk about that, but to tell us about something else. Is this a good time for me to throw up the screen share, or would you just give us a quick introduction and then tell me when, and I'll get you, brother?
Yeah, let me give a quick intro, and then we can throw it up. And this will only take a few minutes. I appreciate you all having me on.
No.
So the app is around March Madness and doing it on chain. And I think that the cool part about this app is that you don't have to really understand how March Madness works. You don't have to be a sports fanatic. This is built in a way where if you are into March Madness and you are into basketball, then you're going to have a lot of fun. If you're not, there's still a lot of things you can do here that's going to be fun and I think is going to be compelling. So when I say we, it's me and Darian, who did a live stream with me last week. We're building this together. He's built an incredible front end, and I'm excited to show it. But the only thing we have to show today is a screenshot. You can throw it up now if you'd like. Yeah, so you might notice there's nothing about basketball in this screenshot. Essentially, March Madness is you predicting who's going to win each basketball game in the NCAA men's college tournament. And so typically what you would see here are like logos of teams. But instead, what we're doing is making some really interesting art and basing that art on the team's mascots. And there's a little bit of like a storyline, like a graphic novel type of storyline. And you can predict the outcome, or you can essentially generate your own storyline based on your predictions of the games to formulate this really cool graphic novel. And the great part about that is that novel will come to life if you predict correctly, because essentially the games that are happening in real life are powering what's happening on chain. So it's a really interesting type of spin. Yeah.
I also love to see my Yukon Huskies winning the championship in the Final Four with a check mark there.
Yeah, baby, little check mark for the Huskies.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if anyone's ever done it back to back before. I don't know anything about college basketball.
Oh yeah, they certainly have. Especially UCLA, I think won 8 times in a row back in the day.
Holy cow! Okay, well,
8 times?
Yeah, they're one of the most dominant. They are historically the most dominant men's franchise. The most dominant franchise in NCAA was the UConn women's team.
Tori says, I enjoyed the Swamp Man. I think she means the Alabama Crimson
Yeah,
Tide.
the Alabama
That's great.
Crimson Tide.
I
I
think
thought
we
that
should
looked so
rename it.
cool. Darian is the one really going heads down on the art stuff too. He's really crushing it. So
I liked the
I'm really excited.
Boilermaker one because I'm like, what's a Boilermaker? I'm like, well, that looks like it could be a
That-
Boilermaker.
I thought it was.
Like,
I thought it was like a Star Wars
bipedal
spinoff at
Star-
first.
It's
you
like,
know, like the-
ooh, I was going with a like a Dark Mechanican Walker, which is a
Yeah.
Warhammer 40K reference.
And
but-
here's the Swamp Man right here, the Crimson Tide. Honestly, it's so cool. Okay, Will, I know you've got to go to an appointment. So, what's your reaction? And do you have a question for Mike as a final thought?
Where do I find it?
Yeah, so it's gonna go live on Sunday. So you can just follow me, follow Darian. We'll be posting it, and we'll also be going live next week to promote it a little
Is-
bit more.
Is there like a tournament gambling component where like there's a pot to put in and whose graphic novel wins?
Absolutely. So there will be a
Hell yeah.
small ETH entry fee, and there'll be prizes for people who predict the most correct games.
Well, you got me because I love doing March Madness tournaments, and this seems like the most fun.
Is
Yeah,
the
that'd
best
be great.
place to find out about it at your profile, Mike?
You can follow me, and I'll be tagging Darian too. I think the tweet that I gave you has Darian tagged, so either one of us.
Great.
Perfect. Hell yeah.
Will, thank
go.
you very much for hanging out with us. Do you have anything else to say to the folks on your way out the door, brother?
Nothing that I haven't already said before. Markets are scary. We got really good PPI inflation, but markets are forward looking and they're looking at an expansion of trade wars. Trade wars affect the global economy, which affects the US economy. The US economy affects the stock market. Stock market affects Bitcoin and crypto. All markets getting pushed down by the global macro factors. So spend some time to learn a little bit about how finance and economics work and how it impacts why your pee poo poo butt coin is going down.
Amen,
Yeah,
brother.
that's all I got. Amen. See you guys later.
Okay. Mike, I do want to ask you one or two more questions if you have just another minute before you go.
Yeah, I have a couple minutes, and then I got to bounce.
Okay.
Workday starting, but yeah, what's going
We'll be
on?
very brief. My first question is, who's your prediction to win March Madness? Do you have a personal prediction?
Like I said, I don't follow, so I have no clue. We will put the seeds, like the team's rankings on the page, so it can help you a little bit. But the thing is, you don't have to know. And actually not knowing could be a little bit of an advantage because
Like that.
if you just pick the winners or the predicted winners from like the experts, so to speak, that doesn't always play out. So if you think someone's mascot looks cool or their art looks cool, you could just pick them based on that, and you could be the graphic novel storyline that actually plays out.
Okay, I'm glad you answered it that way. I was hoping you would. My second question, also rapid fire, and third question, I'll tell you what they are. And Alex, if you've got a question, you can throw in there too. They are, what are you working on right now at Base that you can share with us? And are you still alive in Crypto the Game on the Pink Tribe?
I'm still alive in Crypto the Game. I don't know. Like, I think like just talking about it in public puts a target on your back. But
Oh,
I
damn,
have no,
man.
I have no expectation of winning. I think the game's a lot of fun. It's really interesting, and I think I just wish there was a more accessible way for more people to experience it. But maybe that's something they'll do in the future. It's just an expensive game to play. So I'm still alive. The other what am I working on? Well, Jesse and Dan Romero from Farcaster spit out a video a couple weeks ago talking about like the next evolution of the Coinbase wallet, and so those are the things that I'm focused on working on right now. So I think it'd be relatively easy to find that video if you look for it on X or Warpcast, and you can see all the different features and coming soon stuff that they talked about.
Okay. Very cool. Well, if you need us for anything, if you need users or feedback, you know where to come. We'll definitely share the link to the March Madness, and I'll play too, because that should be really fun. So thank you, man, for making time to come on and tell us about it, ladies and gentlemen. Mike.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, have a good day, brother. Man, killer. So fun. I love when people that are cool come on and
Do
talk
cool
about the
shit.
cool stuff that they're building. I mean, like,
for sure.
that's our job, Alex. We get to hang
That's
out,
the job.
talk about cool stuff.
Yeah, my job last night was to literally just watch a genius build a game with AI, and that was I just kept thinking that the whole time. I was like, dude, this is my job. How
I
wild
went
is that?
back and watched the first half of the interview, and
Yeah.
I was so glad for you. First of all, let me give you a rose and say you and Will had a great conversation. It was awesome. You know, we kind of fumbled at the start because we were back and forth in the audio, and I was like,
Oh my god, yeah.
man, you know, but it was a really, really good conversation. And if you didn't see this, the highlight from me, I tweeted about this, was
Listen, no, this is why. Okay, like my desk looks like Evan's desk now.
yeah.
It's just cables connected everything to everything. I mean, I got two mics. I got cords going to things I don't even know what they're plugged into. I don't know which cord.
And even more dogs.
This is a gross misrepresentation of facts.
Yeah, it's a disaster. So if you haven't heard this conversation though, this is the kind of I'm telling you, like as a guy who works here, you know, who's very privileged to have been able to have built this kind of a platform. Like I'm telling you, just person to person, this is the kind of conversation that, knowing what I know now, I think 5 years from now, people will listen. They'll be scrolling back through our archives. Somebody will, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, they had Chuck Blackstock on the show 5 years. Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
This show is so early because we have people like Alex, because we have people like Will, because we have audience members like you who are really at the future of this thing. Yesterday, Chuck Blackstock, co-founder of Farcade with his brother, told a story. This is a no-code, anyone can use language to build a video game in minutes. He did it multiple times on the stream, and he told this story about how over Christmas, he went home with his brother. They're trying to find product market fit, and they're talking to their sister saying, "Hey, would you use this app that we built to play games and scroll?" And she's like, "Well, I really like Candy Crush. Do you have Candy Crush?" And he was like, "Oh, no. But you know what? That'd be a really good game for us to build." So he says, "Let's work on it together." In 4.5 hours, they walked their sister through how to like prompt this thing.
Yeah.
And then turned the code she generated with her words into a game that got 10,000 plays from thousands of people in its first hour and is now the most popular game on a 100,000 plus user platform. A person with no coding experience
it's so
whatsoever.
cool.
Are you listening to this, Mike? Your job is in danger, man, because tools like the Farcade is the future. And we got to talk about it yesterday. It was amazing. I mean, you must have been so thrilled with that, Alex.
Dude, it was the coolest thing ever. I mean, it felt like manifesting the ultimate job where I'm just like a giant dork and I just get to like find people doing things that I'm super interested in watching and then just like invite them to show me what they're working on and call it a job. It's bonkers.
Yeah. So if you want to see that interview,
it was
definitely check it out. I'm adding it today. It's in the live tab on YouTube, but it will soon go into the Rise Up After Dark playlist tab. If you're watching on Twitter, you can scroll back through our profile. You can find it there. And if you can't find it, you can throw a question in the Discord and we will get to it. And speaking of questions, it's about that time for final questions, last thoughts, good jokes, words of wisdom, all those things. So if you got one we didn't answer, go ahead, leave it in the comments, and we will be happy to get to it. Or we can talk about it over the weekend in the Discord. I did see that Music Man said, "Hey, I signed up for a premium trial." Way to go. I absolutely love it. Points for you. If you are somebody who wants to get more from the Rise Up Morning Show, you want to see the PDF guides that Alex writes totally free, you want to hang out with me in office hours Fridays and ask a question, get some coaching or advice or feedback from one of the most dedicated members of our community, then that's the solution for you. You can sign up right now. It's totally free for 7 days. And you can get all the fun value, try it. And if you're like, "No, it's not for me," just cancel it and go back to using the regular stuff. But everybody here, if you're trying to learn crypto, should check out the Rise Up Discord server. I get it. Discord can be intimidating, but we've got lots of resources to help you succeed, to access the wealth of that community. The only thing missing truly is you. So, Alex, what are you thinking we touch on for the for the rest of this year? I'm clipping some comments. Eamon says, "The best live I've ever seen yesterday was amazing." Whoa.
That's high praise.
Very high praise. Thank you very much.
I would say as we go into the weekend, I'm skeptical, right, of the markets really behaving in any way that people generally expect. And so what does that mean? It means that like I said, if we see a single moment happen, like a tweet that comes out that's not great, and we crater down further quickly, I'll probably look at adding something to the positions that I'm long-term bullish on. That means things that I'm comfortable holding for a few years, which essentially just means Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana right now. If nothing really happens, we just kind of flat, and I go to make the dollar cost average purchase, it'll probably just be USDC. If something happens and we're like, hey, we're back 20%, I'm selling a bunch of stuff. I will take profit 100%. As times get sketchier, I get more aggressive with the speed at which I try to move in and out of stuff. Long term, again, nothing has changed for me. I'm watching Ethereum and Solana as, layer one networks that are making millions of dollars a day in app revenue. That's the metric I care about more than anything. It indicates that people are there doing stuff and spending money, not just to invest, but to pay for things. And you need that. Nothing has changed for me long-term for Bitcoin. Nil says, I like this metric. I am blown away, and I keep screaming it into the void. If we're all investors here, why don't we care more about revenue? Can someone help me understand why we're not talking about revenue more often?
I can't.
It's the number one contributor to the valuation of a company. And we never talk about it in crypto for some reason. Make it make sense. You cannot. And don't come at me with the speculation stuff. I totally get the speculation stuff. Revenue matters. And if we're talking about speculating, we're speculating. But if we also have things with revenue, why aren't we talking about that more? So that's how I'm, looking at things going into the weekend. I always feel a sense of sadness on Thursdays because it's going to be days before we're live again. But also, of course, rest is important. And we will be in the Discord the entire time. My final thought is the cherry on top of my overall movement thoughts, to answer a couple questions. So one of my, stipulations when I take a sponsorship is I'm not going to talk about your token because I have no clue what the price of it's going to do. And I'm going to go out of my way to tell people that I don't care. Here's what it's going to take for a token like Move to do well price-wise and an ecosystem like Movement to do well. And it's too early to say whether or not this is a guarantee, for sure. The product works, okay? It straight up, it works. So many other people's products work too. So the competition is steep. It's a populated space. Right now, you've got a couple things going for it. It's new, it's exciting, branding is good. They are starting to try to establish some sort of culture. These are good things. Bad things, it's super early. They have strong competitors. They are relying heavily on a code base of another ecosystem that they are competing with. So code changes on that side can influence their project. It's early. It's so early. It's hard to say. There is no revenue right now. Okay, we're not even fully, mainnet was super recent. There's still a significant amount of the token supply that is not in circulation. That means that there will be sell pressure. So all of these things need to be considered. If you're getting into something like that, and I would say this for all things kind of at that stage, or that aren't big established with revenue and a bunch of users and a bunch of apps and builders and stuff, you're taking a big risk. And I would be aggressive. If you find yourself in profit, please, for the love of God, take some profit. Please, I'm begging. I'm literally begging you. I'm begging you to pay yourself for winning. Okay? Because you do not know. We do not know. Nobody knows, especially in the short term, what's going to happen. And the big question, the billion-dollar question in crypto is when the dust settles, who's still standing? And when confidence resumes, who's going to be able to go along back up? Because not everything recovers, even if they did well the cycle before. So to echo Solemn, at least consider taking your risk out. At least consider paying yourself back. And I would encourage you not to listen to influencers who tell you to wait for a 3, 4, 5x before you take anything out. 30% return on an investment in a short term is a good thing, and we need to accept that. People in crypto need to accept that. Accepting that will lead to fewer people getting hosed with this stuff. You can disagree with me. I don't care. That's the truth. So thanks everyone for hanging out with us all week. I'm excited to get back into things next week. We had a really promising week with guests. Evan had a very encouraging bathroom phone call. Evan got to
Why you gotta out me like that, Alex?
Because it's hilarious. And we are going to look back on that bathroom phone call in 5 years as being one of those pivotal defining moments
Don't come for me.
in our company's evolution.
The bathroom phone call, the 36-hour AMA. It'll go right
And
up there on the wall
if
of
you
fame.
didn't agree with me, it wouldn't have been how you opened the phone call to me telling me about the bathroom phone call. And
I
know
told
that.
you that. Yeah. But now everyone's left to wonder who the hell calls Evan when he's in the bathroom. Everyone, let me tell
And
you.
more importantly, and Christina's first question, why is Evan answering phone calls in the bathroom?
We have the technology, Christina. I'm an actor, for God's sake. Okay, my final thought, really quickly, is to address this, to keep that theme going of addressing the questions. Roby1, our good friend, asked the question, why are you concerned about the revenue of a crypto company when that would fit criteria for a security? And also a comment from Integrated Dino on Twitter. It's a chicken and an egg issue, revenue. Of course we care about it, but no chain's going to make revenue until it hits product market fit, right? Only a few chains have gotten to that point. So all good questions, very good discussion. We're getting into the nuance here, which I really like. I would say first to Roby1, just simply, I don't really care if a crypto is a security or not. What I care about is like, what is the regulatory framework in which that potential security lives? Not all crypto assets are security. Not all revenue generating crypto assets are securities. I would point to something like Aave and say, I think there's a pretty strong argument to be made that that is a well-established governance token. There are thousands of people who actively participate in one way or another in the governance of the Aave protocol with that token. There are also people who speculate on it. I think the SEC is likely to notice that this token, this type of instrument, behaves differently than other securities like stocks for a company. I'm not an expert in that, but it's clear to me that there's a difference. And it's also clear to me that just because a thing is a security doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad investment, unless the regulatory environment you find yourself in is hostile to cryptocurrencies that appear to be, to some people's judgment, securities.
That gets
And
lost a lot.
I think so,
like turning the word security into an exclusively bad word because it's been used to help, regulators aim more heavily at crypto companies and crypto assets and stuff like that, even though there's nothing wrong with the security as long as it's appropriately labeled and licensed. That's kind of the way that it works.
And I'm going to call out Roby1 and say, I wish you could give a response to that. I would love to have you on the show sometime, but if you want to hear Roby1's thoughts, because he is a very thoughtful, curious, well-spoken person, the best place to do that is once again the Discord, because he's there. And in terms of chicken and egg, listen, there are lots of precursors to revenue we might look at too, right, Alex? We might look at fees being generated,
Well, yeah,
TVL.
absolutely.
We might look at meaningful adoption with key people of influence. I mean, if your protocol is new, but I don't know, the right people on Twitter talk about it, and I'm not talking about influencers, I'm talking about, builders. If Anatoly says, this new thing that Base has made is really going to come for Solana, that is significant to me. That kind of stuff that may happen before something has revenue. I'd take that.
And just to highlight the comment, because I think it's good. There's always the chicken and the egg issue, of course. We're waiting we're looking for things, that could get product market fit. My problem with two thoughts, I guess. One, I think there's room for speculation. Like I said, I mean, that was in my disclaimer. I think that speculating on stuff like that, like you said, Evan, there's other metrics. Revenue's not the only metric. My point is just like when we have something that is cash flowing that hard, is profitable, has product market fit, and is generating revenue, it should mean more than it currently does. Because most things fit into that. We're hoping they find product market fit. I also think that people get a little bit too tied to things like pre-product market fit, and they're very unwilling to accept that they might be wrong. And like the thing that's been here for years and has spent billions of dollars and still hasn't found PMF, maybe they're not the people. And I don't see that. I don't see that willingness in the part of people who speculate heavily on specific crypto ecosystems to be willing to admit, like, this thing that I've been a biased maxi on for ages, maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be. Maybe the fact that they built something that is functionally very good, but have no clue how to share it with anybody, and still have not managed to attract a significant user base or get excited developers cranking out cool shit on the regular. Maybe that's a problem that should concern me. And I don't see that conversation ever happening. And you need to, even if it makes you uncomfortable.
Speaking of cranking out cool shit, my true final thought is, Totori, my dad only calls his friends from the bathroom. So on that note, my friends, thank you so much for another wonderful show, being the best part of what we do, for trusting us with your most valuable asset, your attention. I don't know why, but I'm so grateful for it. If you got more comments, more questions, more suggestions, more good jokes, more words of wisdom, then leave them in the Discord, and we will see you right back here bright and early Monday morning, same time, same place. Until then, everybody, have a great weekend. Stay safe, be well, rise up.